All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Clerk, can we have?
One presiding, 11 present.
All right, we'll move into prayer and the pledge. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Sorge. I will now ask for public comment on any items on the agenda. Hello, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chief Executive. My name is Trudy Huey. I live at 111 West Iron Street. I am speaking to communication number 2023-45. In the fiscal year for 2023, $225,000 was earmarked for and approved by the Commissioners for the sole purpose of financially helping private property owners to demolish their dangerous houses within our neighborhoods. In reviewing the current application that is to be voted on tonight, I noticed that somehow BSB has inserted themselves into the application under applicant eligibility. I also noted that under primary objectives that abandoned vehicles and vacant lots with trash somehow was added. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't community enrichment and other BSB departments already have their own budget for these things? If BSB needed more money for these objectives, wouldn't they just ask the commissioners to vote on it? Back in August 2023, in discussions with commissioners, my understanding, plain and simple, was that this $225,000 was to be utilized by the commissioners to help remove dangerous houses from our neighborhoods. In spite of community enrichment having their own $135,000, and in spite of them not removing or citing for the cleanup or repair of the demolition of dangerous buildings within several districts, they are going to be able to take this money and do what? I know this application is being worked on, but it stands with all the extra objectives and extra applicant eligibility persons. I'm asking for a hold vote tonight. Surely stripping away the departments and objectives down, as well as the subjectively devised point system, will make this process less time consuming, as well as encourage motivated homeowners to fill out the application. Butte wins when departments do their jobs with the taxpayers' money they've been given to accomplish their objectives. Butte wins when we are able to rid our neighborhoods of dangerous houses that only increase crime and blight. We, the people of Butte, need a win tonight. Thank you, Chief Executive, for already trying to remedy this out of control situation that has been allowed to happen to our neighborhoods. My only objective is to live in a safe and clean neighborhood. I will do my part and encourage Butte citizens to stand up and do their part to clean up Butte. On January 4th, 2023, at the end of Citizens United presentation, I asked for a 5-year history on how many dangerous houses were listed, not mothballed, but owners who were legally cited to repair or demolish their dangerous property in my district. I asked for a 5-year history on how much money was spent in my district for the sole purpose of repairing or demolishing dangerous houses. I also have heard Commissioner Reardon ask for the very same information. To date, we have not received this information in spite of being a taxpaying citizen, and I'm entitled to this information under the Freedom of Information Act. I am asking publicly again for this information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for items on the agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll move into report of the chair. I want to thank Commissioner Shea for bringing this up, but I want to acknowledge that it's International Women's Day, and International Women's Day is a global holiday celebrated annually on March 8th as a focal point in the women's rights movement, bringing attention to issues such as gender equality, reproductive rights, and violence and abuse against women. So I just want to acknowledge that it is International Women's Day, so thank you, Commissioner Shea. And I also want to wish the Montana Tech Ordigers good luck in their game, which is going on right now. So we'll move into section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. Communication number 2023-83, Kristen Rosa, Tiffin Administrator, requesting Council of Commissioners approval for a bid opening for March 8th, 2023 for a bid relocating a dirt pile in Montana Connections Park to Solvay property. Looks like Director Neary, and not Administrator Rosa.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, there is a proof of publication for this bid opening that does appear to be in order.
All right, thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Thank you, Chairman Frederick. I almost said Chairman Shaw, Chairman Frederickson. I think we have six total bids for this project. I'm just opening these on behalf of Kristen because I'm a lot faster.
All right.
This is nice. Well, I guess I should read who it's from first, sorry. This is from Emmering Contracting out of Phillipsburg.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you.
The total on this is $245,140. $245,140. The cubic yard to move price is $2.89. $2.89. The second bid is from RT Logging LLC out of Moore, Montana.
And Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Frederickson, the total on this is $264,045. $264,045.
264045.
The cubic yard price is $3.47. The third bid is from ICS out of Butte, Montana.
Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Frederickson, the total on this is $221,900. $221,900. The price per cubic yard is $2.92. The fourth bid is from MJD Contracting out of Clancy, Montana.
Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you. Chairman Frederickson, the total on this is $120,000, $120,840, $120,840. The price per cubic yard is $1.59.
Okay.
The next bid is from Hoffman's R&M Services in Butte. We're gonna have to get that thing sharpened.
Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Frederickson, the total on this is $209,000 even. 209,000. The price per cubic yard is $2.75. The final bid is from Raz Construction out of Bellingham, Washington. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Frederickson, the total on this is $311,600. $311,600. The price per cubic yard is $4.10.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Director Neary. Just an odd, but just an educational, because I don't know what the cubic price per yard, why we need that. I mean, I see that like with, just to be educated on it, because I don't know. Just with like, with the first one with Emery, it was like 289, they're 245, but with somebody that was 292, higher per yard, the Intermountain at 221, why do we need the cubic yard? What is the significance of that?
Because they'll get.
Director Neary.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner Mankins, will pay them once we measure the stockpile after it's moved.
Oh, okay,
So then you get paid by the cubic yard.
awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to refer the bids back to the TIFID administrator for a recommendation back to this body.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Can commissioners please vote? Clerk, can you record the vote?
I know. Yeah.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to presentations, communication number 2023-86, Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners approval for a presentation on March 8th, 2023 to present the fiscal year 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, schedule of federal awards, and related audit opinions. Director Gleason.
Chairman Frederickson, Commissioners, for the record, I'm Danette Gleason, the Finance and Budget Director for Butte-Silver. Here with me tonight is Pat Burt. He is the lead partner with Newland Company that has completed our audit for fiscal year 22. Also in the back of the room is Danny McGee, who is a senior accountant in the Finance and Budget Department, as well as Wendy McGrath, our internal auditor, and Lori Patrick, who is our treasurer. They all play an integral role in helping us prepare the annual financial report for the local government. I just did a small handout. This looks small. It is small. Our financial statements are well over 400 pages of documents that we prepare, but I wanted to just share with you some of the main points that you could pull out from, and then after tonight's presentation, we'll post the full document on the website so you can reference that document on the website, and then we'll get copies for you bound too so that you have that for future reference. In the handout that I gave you, and Pat will jump into the opinion letters, but we also have the management discussion analysis, which I would pull out if I was a commissioner and read that section first. That gives more of the detail and the summary of the financial highlights of what happened from prior year, from last fiscal year to the fiscal year 22. There's a lot of charts and graphs that shows some of the ratios. It shows changes in assets, changes in liabilities, changes in all over financial position, whether it was a governmental fund or business type fund. It also explains those changes in depth. If it's a significant change in the MD&A, I'm required to show those explanations and describe what happened in property taxes, for example, or why is charges for services down. You know, for example, if you turn to page, let's see, 14 of your document, you'll see in the government side that we had a significant drop in the governmental funds charges for services, and that is fully explained in the document that it relates to our health insurance fund. With the changes that happened in the premiums and the changes of 3 business entities or 3 unions changing from our self-funded plan in 21 for a full year in 22 of not having those participating in the self-funded health insurance plan. So those are the highlights. Those are things that get noted. There's a lot of different grant activity that's noted in the MD&A. We also have major funds. So it talks a lot about the general fund. General fund is always a major fund. It talks about the Ramsey-Tiffin, who we always shown as a major fund that will slowly remove off as a major fund. We talk about the ARCO Redevelopment Trust Fund as a major fund, and then of course in our business type funds, water, sewer, those are always major funds. And there's in-depth discussions about forecasts of any potential rate increases. Those all have to be identified if we had seen that coming down the pike in this document. They're not in there. We've been financially very sound, very fortunate community in the last few years. Just one example in a ratio you'll see on page 8 is that in our governmental funds, in our current asset to liability ratio, which is a liquidity ratio, we're 9 to 1 in the government funds and 11.57 to 1 in the enterprise funds, and as a government 10.8 to 1. So that means we have in the government wide we have 10.81 current assets, meaning like cash, investments, receivables to cover any short-term debt or liabilities. That's a very strong number. So those are the type of things that are described in the MD&A. The next section is the basic financial statements that Pat will talk about how he issues the audit opinion on the basic financial statements. I'm not going to go in depth on these tonight. There's a lot of information here that if you would like to come to our office, we can definitely walk through these with you. Or at one point in time, a few years ago, former Commissioner Shaw had me do presentations. I think we met, the Finance and Budget Committee called it, and I met with them about a half an hour to an hour. I think we had sessions for a few weeks to kind of review what the financial statements were, how to read them, that kind of stuff. I'd be more than happy, or my office would assist in doing that someday if you'd like to do that. I don't want to skip over and thinking that there's something here, something wrong going on, because I'm actually very glad that I'm sitting here at this county right now with the financial stability that we have in this local government right now. Especially looking forward. I mean, we all keep hearing comments about possible recessions coming down the pike. We're seeing the feds, we're hearing that in the news as late as this morning, additional higher even rate increases because of recession. But I can tell you I'm very comfortable with the financial position that we're sitting in going into any position like that. Short term, I definitely would not want to be looking at a long-term recession and then trying to deal with it, but don't want to look at it all. That would be the best scenario, but I will tell you I feel comfortable with our financial position. Pat can kind of talk a little bit about that on how they audit that to ensure that I'm giving you the right information. Also in this document is the single audit section, which shows all of our federal federal programs, all of them. And then it also talks more into some of our major programs, and then Pat's opinion on our programs and our internal controls. And then we also, at the end of the section, we talk about the audit comments, the prior comments that we had, and any improvements that were made. And then there's the management discussion on how we recommend improving any of those audit comments. So I'm just gonna move on to let Pat talk about his section of this, and then I'll jump back in at the end and kind of give you our recommendation as the management recommendations for the audit findings.
Thank you, Director Gleason. Mr. Burt, always a pleasure seeing you.
Yes, I've been doing this presentation for a number of years. My name is Pat Burt. I'm a shareholder with Newland and Company. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I've been doing this audit as lead auditor for a number of years. Our firm has been associated with the county for a number of years. So I have appeared before this committee board several times. So what I'd like to do is start on page 1, and that's the very first section there, which is our independent audit opinion on the financial statements. And I can report that what you have again for numerous years is what we call an unmodified or clean opinion, that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects for the respective financial position of your governmental funds and activities. The opinion includes language concerning our basis of opinions. One new item, and each year we're required to report on that. I'm going to page 2 is a adoption of a new accounting policy and guidance, and that relates to leases. Butte-Silver Bow did not have significant leases, but there can be significant changes. You're now required to report receivables, payables related to leases that are on a long term. The lease accounting only applies to long-term leases, and short-term leases are not included on there. But if you notice on the basic financial statements, there is new language on those related to these leases. So, Butte-Silver Bow effectively implemented the lease policies on July 1st, 2021. So this is the first year of the new accounting pronouncement. We show that as an emphasis to make users aware that those new items are on the financial statements. The next section is our responsibility of management for the financial statements. Butte-Silver Bow is fairly unique, and our firm does a number of audits in that Butte-Silver Bow completely prepares their management financial statements and footnotes. Not all that common in governmental entities. The large entities do it. The majority of smaller entities, the auditor themselves prepare the financial statement. So in your case, there's no question that management has prepared those financial statements and understands they're responsible for the preparation. They actually prepare complete financial statements for us to audit in relation to the audit. Some new language that's in there relates to our audit responsibilities. Our professional standards have changed a little bit and require us to discuss if there are any issues related to the entity, related to going concerns. Obviously, I agree with Danette that Butte-Silver Bow is not even close to anything like that. If they were, if we did notice some issues related to the financial statements, we're required actually to discuss with management if there is a going concern issue. And again, obviously, Butte-Silver Bow is very strong government, as Danette spoke to. So we're also required to do some supplementary information related to the management discussion and analysis and some other schedules in the back of the financial statements. We also issue a report that we discuss in this opinion related to the schedule of expenditure of financial awards, and I will review that in the back of this section. So that is our opinion, where we list all the different types of areas in our audit that we have addressed, and our opinion is on that. And I will be very brief, actually. I won't, normally I've gone through, but the basic financial positions of Butte-Silver Bow consist of actually two separate sets of statements, a statement of net position and a statement of activity. And that is designed for the government to actually show more of a for-profit indication, and that starts on page 57 and 58. And then the next section that we also issue our opinion on is on the fund financial statements. And for the members here, this is the statement you're used to. The government generally operates for the entire year using funds. You're all familiar with the number of funds they have. That is the second set of financial statements. Any questions, comments? Again, fairly brief, fairly complex statements, a lot to them. But again, you know, our opinion is unmodified, a clean opinion, and it has been that way for a number of years.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burt. Do commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say a quick comment. You know, kudos to Danette and her team. They work extremely hard. You know, I don't know how many dinners you sat and eaten at your desk and how much family time you haven't spent at home. There's probably your times your husband said, "Who's this stranger?" You know, so I just want to say that you really go above and beyond to provide a service for Butte-Silver Bow. You're lucky you're here. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorge. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the good presentation. Thanks to Danette's team and making sure the county's flush so we can sleep at night, and definitely appreciate that big time. I'm just going back to some of the internal control issues that we had last year come into this year. So they're the same. It looks like they're the same ones.
Yeah, actually,
I couldn't find my other ones. I'm just curious.
I will get to that area. I'm not done.
Oh, I thought you were done. So I'm like,
no. Actually,
oh,
and again,
cool.
you have complex financial statements. There's a number of areas, and an audit of your financial statements is complex. A number of areas, obviously we concentrate on the financial aspect of it, but we also do a whole nother set of audit procedures and auditing requirements, and that is, and I'll just jump right to if you turn to page 77. And on page 78 is your schedule of expenditure of federal awards. We are actually required by our professional standards to perform significant additional procedures related to your federal awards due to the size of your organization. And as you're well aware, Butte-Silver Bow saw a great increase in the actual dollars of federal funds received during the year, and that's reflected in your revenues, and then ideally in the final column, which is your expenses related to the federal awards. Again, you incurred a significant increase in the federal dollars, and as a result of that, we have to perform additional procedures related to those federal dollars, which we did during this audit period, obviously. But so that's the first section, and then as a result of our audit, I would direct you to our opinions section, which begins on page 82. And those consist of two separate reports on internal control and compliance with government auditing standards. The first report relates to, I guess, to simplify the compliance and state requirements that you're required to abide by, based upon the state laws and compliance areas. We do separate auditing. The state of Montana actually issues a compliance supplement that highlights the specific state compliance areas. What this is our opinion, our opinions on internal control over compliance and internal controls. We did have some findings related to that I will get to at the end here, related to compliance areas and internal control areas that we discovered during the audit. Then if you go to page 84, is our report on compliance and internal controls specifically related to your federal government grants. And we're required to perform additional procedures there. We're required to identify major programs and again, perform additional audit requirements related to those major programs. There are some compliance areas related to governmental compliance, but we had actually no findings related to your federal grant programs. And if we did have findings, they would be in the report that begins on page 84. And we discuss our responsibilities, some of the areas we look at. Again, the independent auditor's report on internal control and compliance required by uniform guidance actually has changed fairly significantly, just new language required by professional standards. But to summarize all that, we found no areas that were required to be reported or no findings or question costs as it relates to your government programs. And then so I will jump immediately to, we are required to do a summary of all those findings, and that's on page 87, where we report our findings and deficiencies in a very summarized format, begins on page 87, and the major programs we identified. And that is a summary report that we're, required to submit electronically in a report called the data collection form. I will go, then the area I think probably that you were going to speak on is our auditor's comments. And that begins on page 90. And these are findings that we became aware of during the audit. And what we do have is what we call repeat findings. If you looked at last year's report, you would have seen the same comment related to the Parking Commission, the Civic Center, and the landfill. Those three areas, because of lack of segregation of duties, have been on for a number of years. And to summarize it, management has determined it's really just not cost effective. They're small offices, small organizations. It's not cost effective to hire additional employees. And that's what management will discuss when Danette talks about that. We did have one new area. We actually rotate some of our audit procedures. We went to community and economic development and had a finding there related to segregation of duties. Again, now that I believe can be fixed fairly quickly, and I expect it to be, but there was a lack of segregation of duties in the community and economic development program, specifically related. They manage approximately $4.5 million of loans and loans receivables, and we did have a finding related to that area in the community and economic development. So that's a new finding that wasn't on there in previous years that we did discover this year. And again, we make a recommendation that Butte-Silver investigate the feasibility of improving internal controls over cash collections at outside offices. That again is a repeat finding. We do that a number of times. The next area is has been a finding in the past and became a finding again. The health department actually has two major areas, immunization and family planning, where they actually do billing and have receivables. Strong internal controls require reconciliation of balances, current billings, collections, adjustments, and accounts receivable on a timely basis. And if we flip the page, we noted during our audit that the receivables and cash collections for the immunization and family planning divisions were not reconciled on a monthly basis. I believe, unfortunately, for a number of years, they've been working with at least 2 different software programs to resolve this problem. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they purchased an additional one just recently. So again, that was a finding in the past, and then unfortunately popped up again during our audit for the year. So those are our two summarized findings. And then on page 91 is the findings that we had in the prior year. And not a whole lot you can do, so we have a not implemented on our prior year audit for Butte-Silver Bow improve internal controls offices in small offices outside the treasurer. One thing that has been, for the new commissioners, has been a subject of our audit comments for a number of years is payroll approval and payroll approval process. The budget department, the payroll department has worked very hard actually to try and eliminate those findings. Not that we didn't have minor findings, but we didn't have a number of them, and they were very, not that we consider to, that we could point to a particular department. And in the past, we've had departments with issues related to their payroll. We did have some minor findings that we call exit conference comment findings, but nothing major. We actually, part of our procedures is we pull timesheets and payroll reports and for signatures and authorization. We do that every year. That's part of our audit procedures, is looking for proper approval on payroll reports and timesheets. It has been probably a fairly significant issue in the past, and now has moved down that we have actually moved that to the implemented column. Not that it's perfect, and in a government this size, to be honest with you, it will never be perfect. So those are our prior report recommendations and our findings. So now, other than allowing Danette, I will take any questions if you have any.
Or maybe I should do the presentation first of ours, so they know what we're doing, then they can ask the questions.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Chairman Frederickson, Commissioners, thanks again for allowing us to do this. In the management findings, as Pat has stated, I'm required to respond. I do work with the departments. However, at the end of the day, internal control processes are the responsibility of the Finance and Budget Department. So I make the recommendations, and then I hope to work with the departments to make it work for them. But at the end of the day, we have the final say on the control process. So but I've never had an issue with the department not wanting to implement controls. So that's never been the case. I will tell you, in our management, it's on page 92, you'll see the letter, my response to the comments. You'll see in the Parking Commission, they have done a lot of improvements. Pat can state even further improvements. They've done a lot of different forms. They've implemented a lot of different processes. Over the last year, they really did do a lot of improvement in that area. Again, it goes to segregation of duties. It's like, is it economical to hire one person to sit in the office all day long to allow people to come in to make a payment, maybe one payment a day? It just depends upon what that looks like for us. We are, I will tell you, looking at that because we think that we can combine some other departments and put a person maybe in the Parking Commission area that can do other duties. Chief Executive and I have kind of talked to Pat a little bit about what that would look like. So we are still exploring that option, but they wouldn't solely just be Parking Commission. They might do some other functions, but just be that cash collection entity for the Parking Commission. In the landfill, for example, that's an easy one for us to talk about here. That probably will never, I would never recommend another employee. It would require 2 employees sitting in the booth the 7 days a week that they're open. And so we just do not do a large sum of cash collections out there, maybe 10,000, 12,000 cash a year. There's credit card transactions and a lot of billing, accounts receivable type billing transactions that we do. We just do not do a lot of cash collections. It just does not seem feasible to hire an individual in the clerk's union with benefits of probably $45,000 or $50,000 at least just to do that when we don't even have that cash. So what Pat was referring to is we do the economics and we do the risk, and then we also look at the balance of like what cash is coming in and analyze really the risk on Butte-Silver Bow of ever having an issue with that. So that's one example there. We've also worked with the Economic Development, Community and Economic Development Department. That will be corrected, I'm sure, next year. There's just, there's been change in staff, and we weren't aware that some of the individuals weren't doing duties the way that they were. One good point that Pat has brought up to us is that if we document our procedures very well with individuals, then when staff turn over, then we have those procedures documented, and that, so what was going on in the Community Development Department was one of the employees that was collecting the loan payments and then bringing them to the treasurer's office for processing, or going directly to the treasurer's office for processing, because sometimes that is the case, the loans go directly there. But they were also posting in the payments in the accounts in the loan management subsidiary system and making adjustments. So you have to have that separation, especially when you have the staff to do it. You got to have that separation of duties. So that actually has been rectified. I will work with our auditor, Winnie McGrath, and we'll make sure we monitor that through the year so we can help them make sure their procedures are documented and in place, and that the packets that are needed to show the reconciliations are done will be ready for the audit next year. So that one has been corrected. Then moving on to the health department's accounts receivable. Pat had referenced that they have changed programs. So the family planning clinic changed a program in June. They were able to produce a lot of different reports for reconciling and balancing. They too have had a lot of turnover and change in staff down there, and continue to have some change in staff down there. So the finance and budget department will work with them on a monthly basis so that they're sending us the reconciliations. In our department, in the past, I think you heard a lot from Lucy Hansen, who used to have Danny's role and some of Danny's and some of Kate's role. We've kind of changed our positions around too in our office, but we will split these up, and Danny will be taking over one of the programs and Kate will be taking over the other program, and then we'll be doing the reconciliation with them on a monthly basis. We are getting their reports on a monthly basis. We're just trying to figure out how to make sure that everything's tying out. And the packet's similar to what I said, that they're reconciling their subsidiary ledgers to our accounting system, because our accounting system is the system of record, and that's where we financially report out of. Are reconciled, and we'll work with the health department. It's a similar thing in the community development department that we have to move forward to into the health department. And again, they do have a lot of programs that are now in place that are better, and the report writing has increased. Anybody that's been involved in medical records and medical billing can surely appreciate the complications, complexity of it. So you have insurance payers, you have Medicare paying, you have adjustments left and right, and you have all the changes with CMS and their reviews. And so medical billing is very, very complicated. So I'm not going to take this lightly. It's a big responsibility to take on this task and make it happen. But we definitely will do that. We've done it in the past, and we'll move forward and do it again in the future, and actually go back and make sure it's correct. So now I think we can take questions.
Thank you. Great presentation. I just want to also echo what Commissioner Sorge said, and just say thanks for all you do. You always do such a great job. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. My question on the ones that aren't sufficient years in a row. I mean, what's our repercussion, I guess, if this keeps coming up, if these guys keep, and I'm not saying like there's money missing and there was whatever's inadequate, right? Like, and I know that, understand it'll never be perfect, but here's my question: is somebody doing something wrong as far as not doing your protocol, Danette, or is it just these little things that make it come up on here?
Yeah. Commissioner O'Neill, Director Gleason.
Yep, and I'll let Pat jump in here too, but I'll start. So Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner O'Neill, commissioners, there's nothing wrong. Nothing's been identified wrong. Pat would have had to state that in some of his audit opinions that something has been wrong financially or something has happened, or it might not even materially rise to something on an audit opinion, but he would have had an exit conference with the chief executive to state that. And there's nothing wrong. It's just not having somebody, the complete separation of duties. So they're obligated to identify where there could be potential risk for wrongdoings or something. I mean, that's their licenses and their business. And so, you know, to protect their own entity, they have to say there's a gap here. And then what we do, and I say we, it's not just my department, it's also the treasurer's office and the auditor. They work really hard to educate, and we develop and we mitigate those risks. So we put things in place like Karen Hassler in my office, for example, does a lot of reconciliations for a lot of departments. Danny does the same thing on grants. We do a lot of additional reconciliation for departments to mitigate any type of risk. In the Public Works Department for the landfill piece, Angie Mulliken reconciles their receivables, their cash daily before it goes to the treasurer's office. So there's a lot of additional people involved to assure, you know, so Angie can run all the reports for her, from her computer, so she sees it. So she sees all the transactions, she knows how much cash she's getting, she knows everything that's happening out there. The same thing happens in our office, so Tim Cassidy does it for the swimming pool and Karen Hassler does it for the golf course. So every morning they walk in and they know what they're supposed to be getting that day before it even comes to the treasurer's office. And so we have all those mitigating steps in place, but it still rises to an audit comment because we don't have that additional person just sitting there with that separation that just takes the money and loads, you know, does the loading and separate from the reconciliation or separate from posting an adjustment. Again, it just doesn't make sense sometimes if you're only collecting $10,000 in cash in a whole year to pay a position $60,000.
Yeah, that was gonna be my exact response, and all governments are faced with that. You know, luckily Butte-Silver is a larger government. Problem is, you know, our firm does a number of audits. We do government school district. You know, probably the most common audit comment is lack of segregation of duties. And as even with your organization, of the total dollars we're talking about, for example, at the landfill, in reality aren't material to the financial statements of Butte-Silver Bow, but our procedures require us to look at those areas and comment on that and point out those areas. That's the whole purpose of the audit. Not that there is fraud, but internal control. You know, are internal controls in place to prevent fraud? And that's what you're looking for as an organization, is that you have proper internal controls. And what we call those is mitigating controls. And even at the landfill, Butte-Silver Bow does some additional procedures which are mitigating to help try and limit that exposure. But the reality is, you know, I would agree with what Danette is saying. Is it worthwhile to hire an employee there to eliminate lack of segregation of duties comment? Because unfortunately, it will not go away. You know, we're required by professional standards to do exactly that, to point out to management areas where there's potential. And you know, as far as the government's response, even as recently, probably to give you some history, as recently probably as 4 or 5 years ago, this section was double easily of the offices that had lack of segregation of duties. Justice of the Peace were on here forever, City Court, you know, a number of organizations lacked internal controls and segregation of duties. So hopefully that answers your, you know, and our opinion on internal controls is exactly that. You know, obviously we would point out if we found any fraud, errors, you know, discrepancies, but we're also required to report on areas in internal control that we believe can, you know, do not meet professional standards.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I also want to say thank you for our Budget and Finance Department for the fine work you do, and Pat for you know, the work you guys do to keep us in order and everything. But I just got a couple questions. Seems like since I've been on the council, about 6 years now, the payroll, sounds like you've made leaps and bounds there. That was a big deal when I first got here. And then my next question would be the parking. When I first got on here, they were a couple $100,000 in the red. We weren't making any progress on it, and then they put a committee together and worked on it. But I don't think we've been updated on how that's going. Can you tell how that's?
Actually, that was, you know, what we do is what we call a small office audit. I actually visited the parking. They've made fairly significant strides. They use handheld devices now, so it's not really a ticket book. And that handheld device actually becomes a computerized report that actually lists every ticket that you've issued, and then they daily reconcile that report and reconcile the cash on that. So they've made some improvements there. When I was actually and there's certain areas where we find problems that we go to every year. I actually was there last year, but they've also made improvements and developed procedures on if someone is writing off a ticket. They have a very specified procedure that any adjustment to a ticket is essentially going to management, and that's something they didn't have in the last year. So they are doing controls that way, okay, related to that. So we do look at the internal controls. We've actually looked at those for the last couple of years, visited the parking, talked to them about their controls. They actually, from my standpoint as an auditor, have a pretty good system, which is those handheld devices at the end of the day are just downloaded into a computer system, and it lists every ticket that you've issued for the day, and they have a procedure that reconciles every ticket issued for the day and the total cash. It generates a daily report. So fairly significant improvement over what used to be essentially hand records in prior years.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
I was just curious on how our progress is on the debt. Are we making much progress? Are we getting anywhere? Or?
Yep. So Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner Callahan, I'll add a little bit, then I'll answer your question to Pat's comments in regards to, we are even updating the processes further. IT, Mays is sitting right here. He's working on a project with a couple other IT staff members. They're implementing a whole new system for the parking system. I think, Chris, it's even cell phones like looking machine versus the little paper things that come down. But anyways, there's a lot of improvement, as Pat stated, and now we're improving on that even further. Financially wise, I think the improvements that we've made so far, following up on tickets is part of it too, because they're now printing reports off. They have processes in place where they follow up on tickets that are over a certain number of days. They continue to do a follow-up process, so their collections are much better. It's always, we've had this discussion for years and years. Is it public safety or is it parking too? And the general fund and in the parking garage area, of course, gets URA funding, but in the general fund today still supports about $30,000 a year to the parking commission, but that's been going on for years and years and years. That's not anything new. But I will tell you, as far as like their collections on their tickets that they're issuing, they're greatly improved. They also have improved the number that they keep on the streets and the number of hours they operate internally versus making sure people are out on the streets and actually issuing tickets and then not having one staff person sit in. So they've rotated scheduling, and Chief Executive Gallers, they have certain hours, right? They're only open certain hours. I think you guys instituted that. So they only have certain hours of office time, and so that they're out on the streets doing more ticketing and collections. So that has improved over the years. Of course, the parking garage is different. Northwestern Energy employees are not all full back in the office. So we have seen decrease in revenue there. It's not picked back up pre-COVID at all, and that's no surprise to any of us sitting here that that's what's happening, in the parking garage, which is a separate fund from the parking commission itself.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Sorge.
Just a quick comment. Hey, I apologize for jumping the gun a little bit. I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that, keeps us on the up and up. Looking around the room, there's quite a few people even in here tonight that deserve a big thank you also. Something I don't say enough, so thank you for doing what you do.
All right, thank you so much.
And
Oh, yeah.
Just in closing, thank you again. I know this information sometimes, unless you're a geek like us, as Dan Dennehy used to call us, the county geeks. We appreciate you listening to the information. It is really important, and I just want to point out that, this is a process that goes on and on and on. I think some people, especially for Commissioner Walker, who's new to this, is that our budget is intertwined to our financial statements, so they're not separate. It's a big, and it does take, like to Commissioner Sorge's point, it takes the whole government and all the departments to be part of this. Yes, we spend a lot of time up here on holidays and weekends and whatnot preparing the reports, but it's a year-round process, and it really takes the support of all the departments to really make it happen, and your support as well, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on to Section 2, Communications. Communication number 2023-45, Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence in the establishment of the Property Demolition Assistance Program in Butte-Silver. We've been talking about this for a while, and we have a revised application. So thanks for putting that together. And I'll kick it over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson, Commissioners. There's a couple items that I think we need to address that I want a little bit of clarification of when we're asking about that the local government can apply for these funds as well. I think I want to kind of put that in context of what we're talking about. We have properties that were brought to our attention through a presentation that some of those may come back into our ownership that we're being asked to look at to demolish, that maybe a private property owner that is not following through on this wouldn't be applying for this. So then the local government would be applying for this. So I want people to understand that is the part of the program that we're doing this. This is not for Butte-Silver to try to go and find properties within our portfolio to demo. It's more to address the problems that are out there for us that may come back into our hands because of legal action, because of the process that we follow in the dangerous buildings and follow through on that. That is why the government would be applying for that, because we would need to apply for those funds at that time. So that's, I believe, is appropriate use of that funds. So with that's the reason that's in there. Community blight is in there because if you look at the properties that have been asked to demolish, there is all kinds of community blight associated with those properties. If you look at the yards, you look at the places that are there, that's the community blight. This is not a program, and there's nothing identified in there about going and removing cars and garbage and things like that. It's the community blight, the aspect of the blight that surrounds these properties that are there. So these are ones that as the community has come to us and said, hey, there's issues with a lot of these properties. There's blight, there's crime, there's all these other things. As I spoke to last week, there's a lot to this. And I know that we want to simplify it as much as we can, but this is a process that we've got to follow law. We've got to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where we're going to be liable and we're going to have a lawsuit on this. Now, if this is not the program that you want, we can move forward and try again. But I think this is a good process. We can start this right away and move forward and see how it works. Look at the applications. It is not, I don't think there's anything that is prohibitive within this program that is there. So with that, thank you, Commissioner Frederickson.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Yes, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the heels of Chief Executive Gallagher's comments, can maybe you or maybe County Attorney Joyce explain the difference between this fund and the Repair and Demolition Fund that could be potentially used for those properties that fall back into our into our hands? Or is that, are those repair and demolition, is that repair and demolition fund that has been established, can that only be used on property that's owned by someone else?
And just for clarification, you're talking about the fund within the dangerous building ordinance, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, 814.130.
Yeah. Chief Executive Gallagher or County Attorney Joyce, or both.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner Shea. Those are properties that we identified through the process that within that we have put money aside for that. And I understand what we're looking at here, but some of these properties that we're trying to identify, we realize they're probably going to come back as, and as we said, $225,000 is not a lot of money. Either is $130,000, and we have. I know that there's been some comments about there's been 3 demolitions recently, and these 3 demolitions were kind of part of that process that we use money for some of that during that time. And I don't want to diminish what has happened and how we're moving forward, but all of those were in process prior to any of the community outreach and things that came to us. That didn't; those properties weren't demolished because of what we've had here. I don't want to say that what we're doing here is not important, but I want it to be clear that there are things in process that people don't realize they're happening, and they go through the process. So that money is designated for us to use through Butte-Silver to help with dangerous buildings. I'll let.
Yeah, County Attorney Joyce.
Thank you, Commissioner Frederickson, Commissioner Shea. So what Chief Executive Gallagher indicated is true, and that fund is to be used when we follow the dangerous building regulatory process, but this program can be broader than that. So that's when we talked about when we put in an objective and said that it's supposed to address community blight or urban blight. We know that is a broad term that encompasses a lot of different factors that go into what creates urban blight. And so this program was supposed to include buildings that may fall in the dangerous building regulatory process, that somebody that gets that kind of a notice could apply for these funds, but wasn't simply limited to those. So this money could be used for properties that maybe don't qualify as dangerous buildings, but they are in a state that is dilapidated to a certain degree but doesn't necessarily meet the criteria, and people want to apply for this money. Butte-Silver Bow also receives some properties because properties are put on the tax sale and they're struck off to Butte-Silver Bow when nobody bids on them, and then we have these properties that we have a difficult time being able. We've already offered them twice at an auction for sale and nobody buys them. So that was another reason to have Butte-Silver Bow be an applicant for this kind of a program, because we haven't been able to sell them publicly, and then we can apply to tear down properties that came to our ownership that's funded by the money that we earned from tax sales.
Thank you. That's a great clarification. Appreciate that. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thanks, Chairman Frederickson. So if I were to buy a property off the tax sale, would I be able to apply for a demolition grant for it?
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Chairman Frederickson and Commissioner O'Neill, yes, you would be able to, but that's what that committee would be able to evaluate that, and that's why there's criteria in there. So if you just bought it because you're trying to do an investment property and you're seeing this as a good way to clear out a lot so you can build a nice house for yourself, there's an economic need, there's benefit to the community, what it is to that neighborhood, all of those different things that go along with it. So there's criteria in there to be able to evaluate that stuff that comes forward, what the economic need and things are for it. So we tried to put into it where it's not just for somebody to come in and get a quick buck and, you know, a way to get, you know, help somebody make a reinvestment property or something.
Follow-up, Commissioner
Thank you.
O'Neill.
Reason I ask that is because that's looked at both negative and positive. I look at that as a negative thing. If you got this crapo building that let's not say me, we'll say John Doe buys off the tax roll, uses these things, and then he does put a property on there that's not blighted, not a junky home. Like, I just want that to, you know, twisting it around a little bit. That's okay. And the other thing that we can't, you know, we got to keep our eye on the ball or whatever. Like, if somebody from out of town comes in or whatever, money's money. And moving forward for it to make it not blight, not whatever, you know, the reinvestment of it's a good thing. Then it's on the tax rolls and it's hopefully improving the neighborhood. So.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson and Commissioner O'Neill. I agree with you. And one of the highest criteria in there is benefit to the neighborhood and the cost of demolition. I think that's, if you look at that, that's one of the most important things in there. And that's the way I think what we're trying to achieve. What is the benefit to the neighborhood? And I think that's, been brought forward loud and clear. Helping out these neighborhoods that are struggling with these properties.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Neill.
Sorry, thank you,
No.
Chairman. So on this grant, when I look at this on this deal here, I mean, grant is free money, right? Correct. So again, if I want 25 grand to my sweet $1,500 house I just bought, I'm thinking about this hard now. This is going to be a good deal. I'm going to fill this out, okay? Like, I'm not going to cry. Like, if you wanted a $1,000 loan from me tomorrow, I need more information than this. Like, way more. So, I mean, how many, do we want just a high five and give them? I think, talk about skin in the game. If you can't fill this out for 50 grand for your house to get torn down, you don't deserve it. That's kind of where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, community blight and these dilapidated houses, it's been around for a long time. You know, there's been a lot of different things tried. Some things worked and some things haven't. You know, since the years I've been on the commission, you know, we've tried several different things. I believe that this list or this application grant is a good way to keep things fair amongst all of our committee constituents. You know, there's times when there's money, you know, it's going to have to be done per this application. If this application is, in my mind, if this application is followed, I think it's going to keep it fair and honest for everybody. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorich. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, Chief Executive. I guess my question is, do we really need a 9-person board, a 7-committee from the county, and 12 commissioners to make this approved? Can't we eliminate and just bring it to the commission or something? I mean, everyone knows where I stand on this. Let's get it done. Why are we 8 months into this now? 8 months into this now, plus the 10 years I've been here before, but 8 months in, $225,000. Why can't we just have the contractor, instead of having the person who wants to fill out this form, go try and deal with the planning? And I'm not bad about planning, but who in Butte-Silver County wants to go to the planning board and jump through all these hoops? Why can't they just hire a contractor, let the contractor who has experience dealing with the planning board go do it? We have made this thing a feat instead of a simple process. And I'm going to oppose it because I think we got to start over. We've really took the wrecking ball to an easy program and haven't taken the wrecking ball to a house yet. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Reardon.
Here I am. Okay, people, you know, I agree with Commissioner Fisher and all that. When we initiated this and the money was available and all that, we went through the process and basically earmarked. Earmarked means this is how this money is going to be used. And we earmarked it for the dangerous houses that were ready for demolition in certain areas, okay? So then we went to a meeting, and at the meeting, we were informed that this was public money, which it is public money, which is the money of our constituents that we represent. The people in Butte want some action here. In 2019, there was 460 houses on the rolls that needed attention and all that. We're not the URA with this program. We're not going to fix up houses and all that. We're dealing with properties that have already been through the situation of causing blight, causing crime, don't have roofs, walls are caving in, and this is what this money's for. We talked about a great extent, you know, I'm not going to beat this dog up. I mean, you know, it just seems like that everything that we come up with to try to solve a problem, there's a controversy. And I think the controversy, I get legalities and all that, but we all know in this room the reason that we have to watch our legalities is because this program or the procedure for these homes for years was abused. There wasn't connections made, there wasn't follow-ups and all that. Is it JP's fault? Absolutely not. He's stepping up to try to make it right. But the thing about it is that we really got to look at what this money is for to continue this program, because I'll tell you what, people in this community are hot over this issue. And I don't know what we're going to do. Applications, I get it. I like Commissioner Fisher's situation and all that. And then basically, it's still got to come through the council. But like, I get legal, I get, you know, the input from the deal that we really got to watch what we're doing now because of the situation hasn't been proper for a number of years, and that's no secret. But the thing about it is what people want to see is action. They don't want to see every other Wednesday coming up here, we got a forum, and if we can't do this forum, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do that. And I'll tell you what, it's very frustrating to the people of Butte and to this, the people around this table that want to get something done. We're willing to work with anybody here in this council, but we're not going to be dominated either. And I think that's a point that we got to put out there. I think that in working with the executive branch, we could get something done. I understand legalities once again and all that, but this thing is just starting, when it comes here, is to stink up the whole room. So I would like to just sign off as usual and hope that we can do our constituents some work. Oh, and I have one more thing too. I get the program application, which you're talking about, and I didn't mean to point at you, Chief Executive Gallagher, is basically there are some homes that probably would fall into this. If there are, we would be more happy to look at it. But you've been around town here, you know the districts that need this work and all that. And there have been some houses that have been in the procedure, and people are just tickled. They don't really know if it was, you know, from before or now. But, you know, we got to get something going here. We got to get our, you know, is it going to go another 2 weeks? I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah, Chief Executive Gallagher. Response.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson, Commissioner Reardon. I got to correct some things that were just said there. For one, there's been said there's a list. There is no list of demolitions that are out there that are ready to go. There is no such list. There are properties that have been posted for different reasons and things like that, but there is no list. And I think that was brought up last night at Historic Preservation. There's not a list of ready to go properties ready to be demolished. It does not exist. So I want to dispel that myth that there is some type of list out there. That doesn't exist. Now the process is, and I know that people are struggling with how the process works here, and we're working on it. I can tell you, I went to a search warrant to walk through a property on this. We are working hard on this, and the thing is, do we not want the property owners to come and apply for this? So how do we do this? How do we go through a process if you don't make somebody apply? We cannot go and take properties away from people. So then if you don't want the government to be a part of this, so then we can't apply, and then the property owners that are on these properties don't apply for this, What is the process? That's what I'm saying, is we're creating a process right here, on here, that gives an opportunity for a property owner that has a blighted property, an avenue to have a demolition. But I'm telling you, we don't have a list of properties that are sitting on the rolls right now that we're ready to demolish, like a lot of people think, and has been misrepresented multiple times in here. So I want to make sure that is clear. There is no list of ready-to-go demolished properties.
Yeah, follow up. I'll let Commissioner Reardon follow
Thank
up on
you.
that.
What I said is that and I'm not going to, we don't know. We've asked for that information. We've asked for it numerous times. The list is, now you're sitting here telling me, and I'm not going to argue back and forth. I'm a constructive guy. But out of 400 and some houses in 2019, we don't have one house that is ready to be demolished.
Okay. I'll let Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you so much, Chairman. So this mysterious list, guys, is a study that went around, okay? And they're crappy houses, okay? Again, somebody owns these houses, right? So when they went out and did this 400 or 500 houses that were ready, dilapidated, horrible, meth heads in there, whatever, that doesn't mean we can just go bulldoze them down, right? So we're on that page. We've talked about processes and how this has been going up. All 12 of us had the opportunity to make up your guys' dream of whatever you wanted to do for this application to move it forward on what process we want. I don't know if anyone else had emailed back or has come up with anything. I have not seen anything from any 12 of any commissioners that have said, hey, this is what we should do. Like, we're talking about the process being slow. We're slow on the process right now. This is action in front of us. To have this, in my opinion, kindergarten grade application, and please, no offense taken to that. I mean that as, like, I don't know how more simple we'd want to give somebody $50,000 to rip their horrible house down. I don't know how we do it, other than just say, yeah, come on up, we'll have the truck down there tomorrow. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be critical here, but like, I don't know. You guys are, and I'm not saying I love you both, but you guys, what's your recommendation other than saying the process isn't working? The process is, let's move this now and green button this so somebody can come apply tomorrow and get this over with. That'd be the process, and we can, get the bulldozers out, right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Here are our options. Someone can make a motion, and we can place this on file. That means we will establish this program. If commissioners want to make a motion to note and place on file and to start the process over, we can certainly make that motion. And then this will go away, and the chief executive will go back to his staff, and the county attorney will, and hopefully come up with something that we can all agree on. Those are our options tonight. I don't think we should hold this anymore for 2 weeks. I think we should make a decision on this. That's my recommendation. Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's take the politics out of it. You know, this list to me is taking the politics out of it because there's something has to be followed. You know, it has to be, to me, it's going to be a paper trail that can be followed. You know, if somebody applies for it, let's take the politics out of it. I'm going to make a motion that we concur and place on file.
We have a motion and a second. Does everyone understand the question? Is there anything on the question? All right, Commissioner Shea.
I just want to throw an idea out there, and then we can vote. My first issue is how we determine financial need. I think that's something we really need to think about as we move forward, because I know that there had been talk when we were working through another grant program that we have about asking someone to prove financial need meant that some of their financial information became part of the public record. So I know there's some concern there, so I think that's something we need to be very careful about, but I think it's important that we're granting money to people who truly need it. And I'm wondering if there's a way to give points or prioritize buildings that have already existed on the vacant properties list that have been mothballed and have continued to deteriorate. I think that might be the list that we keep hearing about, is that inventory that I think in 2014, maybe 15, that was developed. So that's just something that I want to throw out there. And then to Commissioner O'Neill's comment about not hearing from anyone regarding the suggestions, we can't, with all due respect, can't email each other in a group because that's a violation of open meetings. So all the suggestions went directly to the chief executive. And I did send some. Thanks.
Thank you. Great points. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Just a couple of things I've been writing down, I guess, and speaking with some people earlier. But firstly, I think as figures of the public, it's inappropriate for us to refer to someone's home or property as awful or whatever, because we don't, I guess, necessarily understand how it ended up in that situation in the first place. And so I think that we need to be a little bit more careful about what we choose to say when we're talking about this. And along those lines, I think it's important that we consider, who is going to be applying. I agree with Commissioner O'Neill on this. I do think we need an application process because I guess if you think about it, and if people are upset that Butte-Silver Bow could apply for these same monies, we get these properties at no fault of our own, and I guess is at the fault of the property owner, whatever situation brought them to that point. So we get these properties, but I guess what my question is to everybody that's the pushback is like, in these neighborhoods, if people can't afford to tear down their house that is not up to standards in some people's eyes, if they can afford that, and they're not going to be the ones applying for this grant, because where are they going to live? What happens to them? And so, that we need to think about that. Like, this is, I get it. Like, I understand the frustration about living in neighborhoods that there are homes around you. So, like, if a property owner can't afford to live somewhere else and that's the state of their property, that's a sad life for them, and that's something we need to be compassionate about. And we're blowing this so far out of the world because this is an opportunity for people, and we're making it an ugly, ugly thing. And so I don't know, I'm frustrated, I don't know. But I think that we just need to be more careful about our thoughts regarding people's lives and their livelihoods and really take a look at this. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Commissioner Fisher, and then Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Let's go back to the communication. Communication to Chief Executive J.P. Geller requesting Council Commissioners' concurrence in the establishment of a property demolition assistance program in Butte-Silver Bow. I'm for that. I'm against the PDF, the demo, the form. We all want to have a program. But everything we try to do from this end, and I know I haven't had a lot of input sending things in. My life's been a little different, but I've worked with Michelle and John. We all want a program, but what are we voting on here? Are we voting on a demolition assistance program, or are we voting on the form? Read it. It says Chief Executive because of Council Commissioners' concurrence in the establishment of property demolition assistance. We want that. I don't want the demo plan, and I don't want the revised one.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, Commissioner, or Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. And Commissioner Fisher, I disagree. This is the program. This outlines the program. So without this, we don't have anything to fall on to what the program is. This is what we've come up with suggestions that I have taken from commissioners. This is the program. There's $225,000 that is available for us to grant for demolition. It has to go to demolition, It has to meet these criteria. It doesn't even have to meet all these criteria. It depends on what people apply for. But without this, we have no application. And we can go back and we can reestablish something and change some wording. I suppose that can be done, but there needs to be some type of process that says, yeah, this should come forward to the commissioners for that. And that's, to Commissioner Shea's point, it's vetting out some of those things. And we've struggled with how do you prove financial need. That's a tough one, because then their records become public, and I guess we could ask them if they would be okay with that, but that's a tougher situation. But you know, I'm not trying to fight with anybody in here. I'm trying to create something that really has been asked. $225,000 was set aside there. I can tell you what, and our departments are busting their butts out there to try to do things right. They're busting their butts, and they're getting there, and they're getting rang through the ringer here over and over and over again, saying that this has been broken and that nothing's been done and things like that. And I've got to defend the people that do this work every day, because their work is tough. And I'm getting frustrated with that when people are just beating up our employees that work extremely hard.
We'll go to Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to just comment back on like the whole, so if somebody's applying for these grants, the houses are obviously in disarray. You know, it's probably not livable, okay, more than likely. Now if I can't imagine somebody, honestly, Commissioner Thatcher, I can't imagine somebody's gonna apply for this grant to tear their house down that they live in, okay? I can't imagine. If that happens, obviously the committee needs to do that. So here's the other deal. Like, let's think of the positive of this. If you can't afford to get your horrible house, or however we want to put this property that's in disarray that maybe drug people live in, or it's going to collapse on, right? Here's the greatness of that. They get it tore down. Now they have an empty lot for an investor to come in, or maybe they couldn't have, maybe that jumps them, maybe that $50,000 to have this clear lot down allows Fortune Construction to come build them a house. I mean, there's the positive of that too, right? I mean, there's a lot more positives that could come out of this than any negatives. And remember, the whole demolition, the whole part of this money was earmarked for demolition bad houses, right? We're not going to demolition new houses. We're going to do the ones that we don't like, that are in disarray, blight, so on and so forth. So, I mean, again, that's the whole goal, and thank you for letting me talk.
Yeah, looking up thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Looking at the application, and Commissioner Shea has brought this to my attention, you wouldn't even qualify if someone's living in the home. So let's just get that out of the way right now. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you for, I guess, clarification. That's my point, is these houses are still going to exist within these neighborhoods because they might still be somebody living in them, regardless of their situation. Well, so I'm very sorry to them that they can't afford to have a very nice home like the rest of us. That's my point, is these houses are still going to exist. So the frustration that Butte-Silver Bow could even be dreamt upon to apply for these monies that end up with these properties in our hands, I guess my frustration is those houses that end up in our properties, and I'm not saying that Butte-Silver Bow should get every single bit of this money. I don't say that, and I get private owners, great, if you're going to apply for it, apply for it. My point is that these homes that come to Butte-Silver Bow with that frustration, you know, they will be in the neighborhood still. So I guess, wouldn't it be beneficial to the neighborhood in itself? Why get worked up about the fact of who's tearing the building down, or who gets the money to tear the homes down? The home is coming down. Isn't that the whole goal of what citizens of Trudy, I'm sorry, I forgot your guys' name, against urban blight, I think, or something like that. But isn't that the goal, is to, you know, get those properties down regardless of who owns them. So if it, that's what I'm saying is, so even if Butte-Silver Boat has these properties in our laps, well, we still want to see them come down, and I also feel like that's their goal. So I don't understand the frustration that lies in why would Butte-Silver Boat be able to apply for this money? That was my point that I was trying to make. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much. Just a few quick points on this. Whenever we're spending the government money, we're going to have some kind of transfer mechanism for that money.
Hit your mic. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. Anytime we spend government money, we're going to have some kind of mechanism for that. If we get a grant, we have to approve spending the grant in this body. We need to have a public hearing. It's just the way the laws are set up. Do I wish they were different? Oh, yeah, I do. An awful lot of the times. It would streamline things. It would make things a lot easier. I believe there's way too much red tape in government sometimes, so I can see your point, but we need to have something. We have 4 months to spend this money before the next budget year comes out. At the end of that, this money can go by the wayside, and I'd just as soon spend the money now and get something rolling on this. Honestly, $250,000 isn't an awful lot of money. I'm sure anybody in this room would love to have that much money handed to them tomorrow. Buy a lottery ticket. Hopefully we'll do something good with it. But it's not that much money when we're talking about what we're talking about, the cost of demolitions, when we're looking at all of these problems. So I figure we're going to have enough for 5 to 8 properties, you know, so we're going to go through this process 5 or 8 times. If it works, great, good. We can throw some more money at it. At the end of it, if it doesn't work, then we can put some more money in. We can try something else. We've tried things over the years, like Commissioner Sorich alluded to. There was many different programs, you know. I tried something similar about 10 years ago to help people fix up their properties. I didn't want to see them bulldozed. I wanted to see them fixed up. Beautify the neighborhoods. Let's paint a porch. Let's clean out the garbage. Let's pull the weeds, and we can never figure anything out. I feel like we kind of put the cart before the horse here. But this is a great opportunity if it works, but we need to try something and see if it's going to work and to see if it's feasible. And we can spend all of our time trying to do that arguing up here, or we can push this forward and move it forward. And as far as the financial need on the farm, I don't really like it too much, but it's a good metric to use. I don't know how it's going to be used, but people are worried that the government's going to take all the money. You know, I can guarantee the government's need to do this isn't going to be as good as John Doe on the street. So that money is going to go to John Doe where we want it to go. People aren't going to say, hey, I want you to bulldoze my house if they're living in it, so we don't have to worry about it. We're looking at a lot of problems that aren't really relevant to this. The relevant thing is we have $250K to use to beautify our community by taking down some neglected and burnt out shells that need to be taken down. Right now, a lot of these burnt out shells are being used for nefarious purposes, for whatever they are. I feel bad for the homeowners in these situations, but more often than not, it's just somebody who owns a piece of paper and everything. The sooner we can get this passed, the sooner we can start tearing down some of these buildings, the sooner that people can say, hey, you know what, I want to do something with this property. I can't do it on my own. Can I get some help? Yes, we got help here for you now. So is this perfect? No. Could it be a lot better? Probably. Are we going to get there in the next month or two? I highly doubt it. So I would encourage everybody to go with this. You know, an oblong wheel is a lot better than a square wheel. And I think we have an oblong wheel here. It's not round, but we can put it into place and we can figure out where we need a chisel, and that's going to get us where we need to go in the coming years. And so at that, I will call for a vote on this. There's been plenty of discussion.
Okay. We will call for the vote. Does everyone understand the motion? This is to concur and place on file and have the chief executive establish a property demolition assistance program with the application that has been provided attached to the communication. Will commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
11 yea, 1 nay.
11 yea, 1 nay, motion passes. Moving on, communication number 2023-79, Dory Skrukrud, Greenway Service District Project Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners approval for a bid opening for February 22nd, 2023, Committee of the Whole meeting for the Silverbow Creek Greenway Reach Q and R Trail. Revised, oh, yeah, sorry, note the error on there. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to place communication number 2023-79 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will commissioners please? Clerk, will you record the vote?
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. Communication number 2023-86, Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners approval for a presentation on March 8th, 2023, to present the fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report, schedule of federal awards, and related audit opinions. We had that wonderful presentation earlier. Commissioner Shea.
At this time, I would like to place communication number 2023-86 on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will commissioners please vote? Record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Nay, motion passes. Communication number 2023-113, Lisa Carey, Office of Emergency Management, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 15th, 2023, for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue to attend the annual IAFC Hazmat Conference in Baltimore, Maryland. We will hold that for the public hearing on next week, next Wednesday. Communication number 2023-114, Lisa Carey, Office of Emergency Management, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 15th, 2023 for unanticipated revenue, hazardous material emergency preparedness, HMEP grant to host a 40-hour ERTI hazmat response regional training in Butte, Montana. We will hold that for the public hearing next week. Communication number 2023-115, Lisa Carey, Office of Emergency Management, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 15th, 2023 for unanticipated revenue, hazardous material emergency response, HMEP grant to facilitate a command and control seminar in Butte, Montana. We will hold that for next week. Communication number 2023-121, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to schedule a bid opening for March 15th, 2023 for doors and openers for the shop buildings road division. We will hold that for next week. Communication number 2023-127, Angie Mullican, Public Works Budget Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 22nd, 2023 for unanticipated revenue, Department of Natural Resources and Conservation grant for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. We will hold that for the public hearing on March 22nd. Communication number 2023-128, Angie Mullican, Public Works Budget Manager, requesting Council Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 22nd, 2023 for unanticipated revenue, Department of Natural Resources and Conservation for landscape scale restoration grant for the Basin Creek Watershed Restoration Project. We will hold that for the March 22nd public hearing. Communication number 2023-129, Angie Mulliken, Public Works Budget Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 22nd, 2023 for unanticipated revenue, Department of Natural Resources and Conservation grant for Phase 2 of the Fuels Reduction Project for the Basin Creek watershed. We will hold that for March 22nd public hearing. Communication number 2023-134, Karen Malachny, BSB Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on March 15th, 2023 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue resulting from Pathways to Recognition Program Task Order. We will hold that for the public hearing next Wednesday. I will now ask for public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Oh. I just got a note that they won.
It's
Yeah.
over.
All right. Well, congratulations. Congratulations, Diggers.
Yep.
Before we adjourn, Commissioner
You're on the
Fisher.
lag.
I'd like to congratulate all the strong women of Butte-Silver Bow, state of Montana, and our country. It's their day today, and congrats to all. I'd also like to say I won't be here next week. I will be donating my services to the Cystic Fibrosis Calcutta. It's at the Butte Country Club, and anyone that can get there or can join the team, I hope you can do that because it's a great event and it's a real good fundraiser.
Well said, Commissioner Fisher, and thank you for your service for that. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Also, since we did give a good luck shout out to the Diggers tonight, good luck to the Butte Central boys and the Butte High boys in the state tournament this weekend.
Yes. Well, I can't believe I forgot about the high school basketball. Thank you for Commissioner Thatcher.
All the announcements.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I hate to keep everyone in from leaving tonight, but I just want to also, we lost a really legendary person in our community with Charlie Merrifield, somebody that has given so much back to Butte and athletes in Butte, and it didn't matter what color they wore, he always gave back. So just remembering him as he passed just the other day.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chief Executive Gallagher. Rest in peace, Coach Merrifield.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you.